everyone, and welcome to the Future of Work podcast. I'm Niveta, digital marketing analyst at Links of Technologies. In today's episode, we are talking about what it really takes to build a future ready HR team, one that's ready to adapt. Joining us today is William, an accomplished HR leader with over a decade of experience across industries, including pharma, retail, logistics, and manufacturing. He's also the co host of the Beyond HR podcast, where he leads thoughtful conversation on burnout, workplace culture, purpose, and what it truly takes to build healthier and more human centric organizations. Will, glad to have you on the show.
Awesome. Thank you so much for having me here. Glad to be here.
Thank you. Why don't you start by telling our listeners a little bit about yourself and what you're currently focused on?
Oh, awesome, awesome. Yeah, so like you said, my name is Will. I am currently the HR manager at a cheese manufacturing plant based out of Hancock, Maryland, here in the US. Um, I not only do I have a functional HR job, but I also, like you mentioned, co-host the Beyond HR podcast, which was born and developed from the idea that we need to create a space for HR professionals who have been in the industry for quite a long time to kind of reignite the passion for our work, reconfigure and figure out what it is that drives us and motivates us to be in HR. And at the end of the day, bringing back humanity back to the workplace. And that dream or this project of ours was developed from all the years of HR that I've worked. Been in HR for almost actually 10 years now, or no, sorry, 20 years now. Started in HR back in 2006, and over time, as I grew within the HR business and the HR world, it started to dawn on me that there's a very emotional aspect of our work that over time starts taking a little bit of an emotional toll on yourself as an individual, especially functioning in spaces where you're an HR department of one, or maybe sometimes even two, and have a higher level of HR responsibilities. You start to realize that due to the nature of the work that you're doing, the confidentiality, HIPAA, things, you can't really share that with other people within your organization because some of those things are, protected by law. So you tend to start holding all that energy and all that's, what I call spiritual burnout, by yourself. And then you start questioning, am I doing it the right way? Am I even meant to be in HR? And there's a lot of, inner thought that comes into the play. Um, so as I've grown within the HR industry, started to seeing that more and more in my own professional development. So as I reached out to other HR professionals, we started to see that the a common theme that it's very much shared amongst HR professionals, which is the mental health of our profession. And yeah, and fast forward to now to 2020, 5 going on 2026, we saw the need to start creating spaces for HR professionals to feel comfortable talking about mental health within our profession, within ourselves as individuals, because it's really hard to be able to pour out of a cup that's empty for ourselves here.
All right, that's quite inspiring journey to listen to because out of all the podcasts I've been listening till now, I haven't come across many podcasts that specifically focus on, giving back to the society or talk about mental health uh, or anything similar, right, within the HR community. So this is quite refreshing for me. And let's start with the big picture here. When you think about the future of HR, right, what's the first big shift that comes to your mind?
So I think for myself and with the work that we're doing, so I'm going to come up from that angle. And I think it's a very important to note that this is from a context of organizations and professionals that want to do better and want to progress with change. Okay. So I want to kind of create that context. But what I see is one of the biggest shifts is going to be the human aspect of our profession. And even though it's like, oh my gosh, HR, human resources, it's in the name. with the development of different technological advances that are happening that I'm sure we're going to talk about more here later on, um, the technology can replace processes, procedures, documents, but it cannot replace the human to human interaction. So I do believe that the biggest shift that's going to happen in the future of HR is as HR professionals, we are going to be held at a standard of understanding the emotional, psychological, spiritual need of our workforce. And how can we enable improvement in those areas so that our employees can be better versions of themselves, so that in turn they can be better versions of themselves for the company and help the companies grow. So I think one of the biggest challenges is going to be as HR professionals, and this is not calling anybody out specifically, but if as an HR professional you're not willing to shift what you're doing in understanding that our jobs is no longer going to be compliance, just procedures, just enforcement, but understanding the emotional toll that the world around us has on our employees. If you're not willing to wrap your head around that and actually put something in place for that, then unfortunately you are going to be the one of those people that get replaced by, technology and everything else that's coming. So.
I couldn't agree more. And now, when you look at where most HR teams are today, right, do you feel they're actually ready for that kind of shift? Or is there still a long way to go before we can truly call them future ready?
Yeah, yeah. No, that's a good question. I think it's half and maybe not half and half, but I think there are definitely some folks that are starting to see it, some folks that have been in the front end of it, and some folks that are still trying to wrap their head around it. So I think it's probably spread across the board. I have talked with a lot of HR folks here in my local area where they're aware that we need to start having more conversations like this. Especially with the resurgence of AI and everything that comes around that. How can we support our employees better from the human side? So I do think that the ones that are going to succeed are going to be the HR professionals that are willing to do the inner work themselves to see how traumas, how our own obstacles hold us from progressing at work so that not only can we see it in ourselves, but we can see it in our employees and how they show up at work, so that we can better support them. So I think at the end of the day, it's probably a mixture of both, and I do see some trends in the operations side, which is the support, what we support as HR of leaders that are starting to see that as well and utilizing HR as strategic partners more so than just an administrative function.
Okay, so let's talk about the skills that are going to matter the most. If you had to pick just two or three that HR teams absolutely can't survive without in the next 5 years, which ones would make the list?
Okay. I think number one for sure is emotional intelligence. That skill, even though it could be a common sense skill for our profession, that's something that I still continue to try to learn more about and develop. Because I mean, in no way, shape, or form am I an expert. I'm a student. I'm a functional practitioner. So as we're talking about things that we need to do better, these are things that I'm currently working on myself as an HR professional. So definitely emotional intelligence is one. I would say, systems thinking and storytelling were probably close to two and three, because the emotional intelligence is going to help you read the room that you're in with your managers, along with your employees and all the other stakeholders. Your systems thinking is going to allow you to redesign your policies and procedures to that audience and how they operate and show themselves. And then your storytelling is going to be how do you convince people to buy in into the things that we're creating. So being able to put all those three different facets together to allow ourselves to not just identify our problems or issues, but also grow and help our company grow is definitely going to be super key for
All
sure.
right. So you were talking about emotional intelligence playing a huge part, and also about the system design thing. And along with that, we hear a lot about the digital fluency and data literacy, right? They are becoming the must-have. And but do you think those are really essential now, or is it still people focus skills?
Very good question. My nature is to always gear towards people focused skills. However, I do want to do like a dot 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 on that. And it's the fact that you still have to be able to keep up with the digital influency or fluency. I'm sorry. Because it's great to know people, but if you can't tie the two together to be able to function more effectively and more efficiently, then it's just a matter of knowing the people, but then you're not there with them. So I think that number one is always going to be for me, understanding people, understanding how they operate, the mechanics behind their motivations, tied into very closely with the digital fluency, so that we can not just capture that information. Because a lot of and you have to be fair. Operation teams like to see numbers and data, so being able to capture retention, engagement, all those key HR terms in regards to company KPIs. Being able to capture those in a way that makes sense is going to be important. And that's kind of where the digital fluency comes into play.
All right. Can we also add empathy into the list? What do you think?
Empathy is definitely on top of the emotional intelligence list for myself. Um, and try to understand, because that's one of the things that I try for myself as an HR professional to do as best as I can. When someone comes at me with a problem or a disagreement, either about me or about someone else, I always try to understand the why. And one of the books that I always, throw as much as I can out there is, by Simon Sinek, Understanding the Why. I believe that even though a lot of the essence of the book was, understand the why of the companies and why they operate the way they do, so that you can understand. I do apply a lot of that to my own individual employees and other stakeholders. Why are they coming at me this way? And another thing that I like for myself and kind of helps me center myself and keep me grounded is whatever's happening and coming at you, it has nothing to do with you. It has to do with something else. Even if somebody gets mad at you or screams at you, it's not about you. So try to understand the why. Why are they screaming at me? Why are they saying things the way that they're saying them? Why are they choosing those particular verbs? Because at the end of the day, most 99% of the time, I have nothing to do with what's happening. It's just I'm the person there that's willing to lend a listening ear. So by default, I'm receiving whatever emotion comes with that. So definitely empathy and understanding that, it's not about me. I need to understand and listen as best as I can to understand what they're trying to say to me. It's super key for sure.
All right. So now moving on to the AI and technology impact part. Uh,
Hmm.
we can't really talk about the future of HR without mentioning AI, right? And it's reshaping almost every function in the business right now. How do you see it changing? Uh, what it even means to be good at HR today?
Whoa, wow. Um, I think AI is definitely gonna expose and again, I'm saying it with love. So for all those listening, there's a lot of love with this that I'm saying. AI is definitely gonna expose the people that have been operating HR at a surface level. The ones that have been focusing just on creating templates and scripts and checklists and SOPs. AI is going to be the one that's going to replace all that information. So the HR professionals that are going to succeed in our field going forward are going to be the ones that are going to be focusing on the humanity of work, on intuition of how can we take care of our people, and having a little more wisdom or bringing wisdom to the table to be able to discern properly how can we create systems that help our employees more so than damages them. And that's something that I'm also myself learning more and more about, and how can I, for example, look at an attendance policy, and instead of it being like a one, two, three strikes are out the door, how can I still hold an employee accountable, but within the flexibility that things happen outside of work? Understanding that one day an employee might have something so drastically happening that they might not show up at work with a good attitude, or maybe they're down, and we're expecting them to meet this number. But at the end of the day, like if they're not present because of everything that's happening to them, how can we expect them to do that? Kind of just having that understanding. but yeah, we're moving into a realm of HR where we have to, as an industry, start heavily figuring out ways of how can we present the humanity, emotional, mental aspect of employees to our operational counterparts in a way that they understand that this is super crucial, especially, going into 2026.
I can agree on that. And also, do HR leaders need to become technologists themselves, or is it more about knowing how to use the tools intelligently to make better decisions?
That might be who you asked. I think for my own day-to-day reality, understanding the basis of the tools is important. Um, un but it's more important to understand how that applies to the workplace currently. So I want to say a little bit of both. But I think some of us are more geared to understand technology better than others. It depends on the generation that you're grown in. This comes a little more easier than others. But yeah, I think it has to be a 50-50 balance to be able to function. So if you're asked questions or hey, do you understand this or how can we do this better? You don't sound like you're unable to support in that area.
For me personally, like even initially, I was struggling to adapt to these AI technology because every day you would see new updates and new LLMs popping up, right? So it took some
Mhm.
time for me to learn those tools, and for me, for someone who's from a non-tech background, right? It was really cool because I was able to code with the help of an AI, which was
Mhm.
not possible before it, right? So.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And AI
Yeah.
is changing, even for our industry. Like I know there's constantly, training videos and seminars about how can we apply AI properly in HR. So I think definitely, and that's something that I utilize to better understand my thought process. Because where AI has helped me a lot has been to help break down any biases that I might bring into a topic or a conversation. So a lot of times, like if I have a particular way that I think something needs to be addressed, I might run it through AI and say, "Hey, help me understand what blind spots might be present in this thought process that I have." And it does a really good job of helping you walk through it and try to understand. And then there have been plenty of times where I'm like, "Oh wow, I never thought about that." Not because I didn't want to think about it, it's just something that wasn't there in the forefront of my thought process. So I think definitely embracing it is inevitable. Like we're gonna have to embrace it. So how can we embrace it in a way that um, we can still be humans through that process is gonna be super key.
All right. And from your perspective, how can HR evolve from being a support-driven function to truly becoming a strategic partner within the business?
Yeah, you know what's crazy about that? I've struggled with that question before, because I tend to want to err more in the helping people side of it. But I also understand that HR has a function, to the company as well, and making sure that the operations of the company operate. I think being able to kind of like I alluded earlier, quantify retention, innovation, and engagement in a way that we can put a number to it, I guess, has been something that I try to work on as best I can. So, for example, let's say we're losing 15 people a week for some reason, right? Um, Being able to drive down and say, why are we losing these people, and find out the root causes as best as we can, because sometimes it's not easily accessible information, and then being able to break it down to say, hey, let's just say, for example, maybe the people are getting tired of picking up boxes, their back hurts all the time, and they'd rather find a job somewhere else that's easier. Well, being able to say, you know what, I talked to 5 people around these folks that quit, and it seems like that, days leading up to them quitting, that they were complaining about their back hurting and things like that. Hey, I think if we spend, I don't know how much some machine nowadays on average costs, but let's just say it costs $40,000, which is a considerable amount of money. If we spend $40,000 now on this machine that can help us do the job better and help our employees ergonomically and whatnot, we could potentially save $200,000 down the road because we don't have to replace all these employees that are quitting. So being able to quantify it, And again, it's something that I'm still working on. Being able to quantify that information from the people side to the operations side and the cost savings that can come from that is going to be probably the best thing because a lot of operational folks just want to see numbers, not because they don't have a bone of empathy. It's just that that's what they're paid for. They're paid to see the how can we be most effective, most efficient in our business. Um, and so forth. So being able to be that bridge between that is it's going to be a challenge at times, but it can this definitely be something that we can better support our operational team.
With all this focus on AI, automation, and data, there's always that worry about losing the human, right? And the human resources. How do HR teams make sure empathy, culture, and the connection stay at the center of what they do?
Um, Having conversations like this, not just with, with podcasts and conferences, but with each other. One of the things that I'm currently trying to work on heavily with my team from an HR field perspective is creating a better space for fellowship within HR folks and support for each other. Because I think that's an aspect of our business that, and it's not necessarily in a bad way, but we kind of tend to not think about we got to take care of ourselves because we're so focused on taking care of the business and taking care of the people that we kind of lose that aspect of how we operate. So creating a network of other HR folks that can support each other through their struggles, not just like personal, but also career wise. And by being able to help ourselves, we're going to by default be in a better mental headspace to help other people within our organizations. And again, AI can't replace that. There's not a single piece of AI that's going to replace just human to human interaction and context, or I'm sorry, contact. So yeah, I think that being able to create a good network of support for each other is going to be super key for that as well.
All right, so building on that, do you think empathy and cultural intelligence will actually become more important in the future, or do you see a risk of technology starting to overshadow them?
Oh no, hands down. I think that cultural intelligence and empathy, it's by far going to be the most, um, it's currently the most underused, I don't know what you want to call it, traits or behaviors that we have. And it's going to be even more so needed in the future because of the fact that with more technology tends to come more disassociation and disconnection from other humans. So being able to place ourselves in a mindset of empathy and being intentional in how we interact with each other has to be at the basis and the foundation of how we interact with each other going forward. And then being authentic in the process too. I think with empathy comes authenticity. You can't show yourself as an empathetic person if you're not being your true self and creating an environment or space for you to not only to for yourself to be able to be showing up as your true self, but allowing the person with you that's there in that moment to show themselves up and feel comfortable and safe enough to have those kind of interactions with you and conversations.
All right, so let's make it a bit more practical here. If you were advising a mid-sized HR team today, right, let's just assume, what's the first capability you would tell them to start building to prepare for the future?
Ooh. Um, Self-awareness, I think, is the number for one thing. And again, as a practitioner myself, I'm working on that as well. So I know that being self-aware of the things that you're good at, as well as the things that are, your shortcomings, sounds easy, but it's really rare, and it can be difficult to do if you let your ego get in the way. So I think it's a matter of looking inward to yourself, looking inward to your team. Um, Looking for again, kind of like I said earlier, looking for your blind spots as to where you could be doing better or what are things that could be done better about yourself. And then eventually, once those are identified, not taking them personally, because a lot of times people are the mirror of us. One of the things that I talk about at home with me and with my wife is that sometimes things that we don't like about ourselves and we see in other people are the things that trigger us. And that's something that we've learned in the last couple of years of trying to learn ourselves. So sometimes whenever you have that emotional outburst with it, either within yourself or in your thought process, being able to stop for a second and say, why am I reacting this way? What is triggering me to cause this emotional reaction? And internalize it, process it, and once you identify, being able to evolve emotionally in that space, so you can stay ahead of the curve from everything else. So I think again, being able to be more self-aware, self-present, and being present in those moments is very, very important. And it's an important capability for HR people that needs to, if they are not already working at it or working on it, start thinking about that and start working on that as well. And this is not just for HR people. This is for anybody that's in a people or leadership position, because it's easy to say, "Hey, HR people," but anybody that has the one-on-one connection with people, or contact or leads people should start thinking about that. I need to be more self-aware in what I'm doing and how I'm dealing with those around me.
And when you look at younger HR professional, right, and if we compare them to more seasoned leaders, how do you see them preparing differently for what's coming next?
I think that the younger HR professionals are coming into the workforce have some things that are going to be to their advantage that us older folks don't. And the biggest thing is that they are growing up in an environment where it's okay to talk about your emotions. You know, I come across people, HR, non-HR, where the older generations are like, oh, we don't talk about emotions because you don't want to come across as being weak, being vulnerable. If you show up yourself as being vulnerable, then people want to take advantage of you. Whereas younger generations are more like, let's talk about our feelings. How does that make you feel? And how can we talk this through? So definitely that's a perk that they bring. But then the folks that are been in the industry longer, they bring the business acumen and the balance of what it means to be a mentor. So being able to see that maturity and understanding and knowledge of the industry, the younger professionals should tap into those resources around them. And if they're not, there are plenty of HR related organizations. I'm part of the SHRM organization, but there's all other kinds of organizations that support HR people. Being able to tap into that resource as a young person to say, hey, I know that you were in the industry for 20 years. Maybe we don't necessarily approach it the same way, but what can I glean from you? What can I learn from you so that I can take my empathetic self into that profession in a better way so I can come across as, more knowledgeable and be able to function as a better holistic human resources professional for sure.
All right, so this has been such an insightful conversation, Will. And before we wrap up, right, I have got two quick closing questions for you. So first one will be, if you had to give one piece of advice to HR leaders who want to stay relevant in the age of AI, what it would it be?
Hmm. One piece of advice. Oh, there's so much stuff. Stay radically human. You can learn the technology, you can, practice the technology, but always, no matter what you're doing, lead with heart in front of it. And that's going to kind of trickle everywhere else. The heart will help you ask the questions why, to better understand. It will give you a better purpose. And it doesn't matter how hard you try, you can never outsource empathy to an algorithm or an AI service. So understanding that aspect of it and staying on top of that is super key.
All right, so the second one will be, what's one future skill you are working on yourself right now?
For myself is being still, and allowing myself to be in a place of quietness. I think stillness is an underutilized skill set for myself because I'm the type of person that I want to fix problems. You
Okay.
come to me and say, "Hey, this is something that's going on." I just immediately want to jump on and give solutions. And this is both at work and at home. So it's not just like a work situation. So understanding that aspect of myself, I'm heavily trying to be conscientious of how I show myself up in that moment and just being in stillness, being in quietness, and allowing myself to slow down so that I can not just like hear what someone's telling me, but take it to my heart, understand it, for myself, for my team, how I show up at work, and how I show up in the world. Because at the end of the day, we have to be able to allow ourselves to pause long enough to be able to absorb everything before we want to jump in and fix everything. So yeah, stillness is definitely a big one for me that that I still work on and try to actively pursue every day.
All right, honestly, that's a great note to end on, Will. And thank you so much for joining us and sharing your perspective. And we will be again, hopefully, in the future, we would have a chance to connect again and discuss, any other topic that will be insightful, educational for the listeners. Thank you so much, Will.
Very much. Thank you. I appreciate it.